Everybody, and welcome back to the podcast here. I've got Amy Jo. She is just a stud of an individual. Her and her husband are crushing it at what they do, which is so many things that it's hard to remember all of them. But, you guys have a farm. You guys have jiu-jitsu going on. You guys love physical training. You love bow hunting. You guys just kind of do it all. So I don't really even know what your job is, Amy. I just know that you guys do a lot of stuff. And I met you guys at TAC. I was really impressed with what I've seen so far. And I love getting people on the podcast that aren't these, Insta famous people that just, seem to be able to do it all. I like getting people on like me, that have a family, you've got stuff going on in the real world, and you post little clips of it on social media to show people that they can do it also. So, Amy Jo, who are you? And who are you in a nutshell, basically?
Cool. Well, I think you just kind of nailed everything right there. To answer your question, what I do, a lot of people ask us this. I'm in digital marketing and branding. So I get to work from home. I work with a few clients, so I'm able to make my own schedule, which has been a long-term goal of mine to be able to pursue all of the interests that me and Tony have. But I'm a fitness and health enthusiast. I am a bow hunter. I practice jiu-jitsu. We have a small hobby farm in North Texas. So we've got chickens, cows, a donkey, dogs. And then, we have a RV, so we travel whenever we can. And, we stay busy.
That's awesome. That's so cool that you guys have you've created this life that you want, and you're able to go out and just kind of do what you want to do. And that's pretty cool. So, let's start with, I got your husband's side of how you got into jiu-jitsu, but I want to hear your side. Let's start there and move on to some of the other things that you guys really enjoy doing. What draws you to jiu-jitsu? What was the initial draw to that? Because it's such an interesting martial arts that people don't know about.
Yeah. Well, Tony, he set a really good example for me. He's trained for, 14 plus years. And so when we started dating, he made it very clear, like, hey, I go train jiu-jitsu several times a week. That's kind of my thing. And I was like, I respect that. I think that's great. And then 2020 hit and the world kind of fell apart. And I was like, man, I would really like to be an asset instead of a liability. So I need to learn to defend myself better. So he just was like, hey, why don't you try out jiu-jitsu? So I tried out a couple of schools, and then I ended up going to his school last because I wanted it to be something that I did because I wanted to do it, not just because he was doing it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, hey, try out my school last. You're always welcome to join me. And I went there, and there's a lot of really impressive women there that train. And so I walked in, and I'm lucky I've been naturally gifted athletically, but when I walked into the jiu-jitsu school, I was getting hammered. So it was very humbling and very eye-opening of, wow, it really doesn't matter how fast and how strong you are. If you don't have the skill set or like the mindset to defend yourself, you're kind of a sitting duck. So it's been something for me that's been really challenging. And I love challenges. And so it just keeps bringing me back. It's painful every time. It's a really good lesson for your ego. And it just, internally and externally has so many rewards to it.
Definitely. No, I love that explanation of it. And your stories line up. So I like that too.
Yeah.
It's pretty much how Tony explained it as well. So I love that you guys, you got into it so I'd like to highlight this because it's hard for people. This is a hurdle that not many people talk about, whether it's taboo, whatever. And I'm that guy that I'll talk politics, finances, and all that at the dinner table, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't feed into those taboo things. So as a woman, it's hard to walk into a gym where you're going to be rolling around on the mats with men and women and getting your butt kicked in a very physical sport. That's a big hurdle for people to get over. Now, I understand you're an athlete, and that's something that you've enjoyed doing. So maybe not as big of a hurdle, but I'm sure it was still something that took a little courage to go into that gym the first time and start doing that. So what is it, maybe what's something that, and I'm going to highlight something else too, I'm going to come back to it, but something that for you was kind of that defining moment where you were like, you know what, I'm going to get over this, whatever hurdle it is, and just go in and get after it. What's maybe some advice you could give to women out there that are looking at getting into it?
Yeah, man, I think if it's just because I really was nervous going in for the first time, but it was on my heart for a while, and it just kept recurring and showing up. Like, I need to do this, I need to do this. And I've learned in life, the more something shows up in my heart that I push away, I have to just explore that, because it's just going to kind of eat away at you. So you really just have to like put your fears and your ego aside and just step in and do it, be okay and accept the fact that you're probably going to fail at first. And there's going to be moments that are uncomfortable, but that's how you're growing, is if you're experiencing discomfort. So that would be it. And I mean, same thing. I know like there's a barrier to entry for like women entering the gym for the first time, because what do the machines do? How do you use the dumbbells even? There's so many things that go into it. But if you just like start small and show up, and that's really the biggest thing, is just show up. There's always going to be people there to help encourage you, and you'll fall into the right group, but you just have to show up first.
I love it. Yeah. So just show up. And then, I mean, sometimes that's something too that doesn't really get mentioned a lot. I mean, you had some good reasons, but there wasn't necessarily something that was like the trigger of, okay, today's the day. It was just, you just said, I'm going to go do it. And I think that a lot of people underestimate the power of just saying, I'm going to go do it, being true to what you want and to yourself and the goals that you've set for yourself. You did also mention something in there though, that's pretty key. And I love the verbiage that you used, but saying that you wanted to be an asset, not a liability, as things were getting a little, crazy out there. And people were not knowing, where meat was coming from and stuff along those lines. You wanted to do everything that you could to make sure that you weren't. And it's not, I could almost guarantee you that Tony didn't feel that you were a liability, right? But recognizing maybe some things that you could improve on, I think that's also something that's really key for anyone, men, women, children, to recognize. And as parents, or as a parent, it's something that I want my kids to recognize as well, not sit back and say, well, I guess I can't do it, but get in the mindset of, well, I couldn't do it today, but a year from now, I'm going to be the best I can at it. Right. Yeah. And so that's really cool. But yeah.
Yeah. It's such a confidence boost too. Like I have my CHL, so I can, carry my gun, and I have my Montana knife, my EDC I always have on me. And, just knowing that I have options, and that, there's, we do live in a broken world. There's a lot of good in it, but reality is it's very broken. And so being able to be somewhere and know, like, if I'm somewhere with one of my friends who has a little kid, and, there's, a guy comes up to us, like, I know I can at least do something, may not work completely, but I know, hey, I can at least take charge in that moment. And just being able to be capable is it's such a confidence boost, and it applies in every area of life too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, having that confidence, being able to walk out there, it's so talking about jiu-jitsu a little bit, it's a different kind of sport. So like karate's cool. Taekwondo is awesome. It teaches discipline. It teaches different, defensive mechanisms, but there's something about between wrestling and even jiu-jitsu, even more so, that it teaches you to not freeze up when someone puts hands on you. And I think that's something that, again, is very underestimated in today's society. We're so socially distanced, even just when we're in the store now. We've, over the last couple of years, have been taught to stay distanced from people. And so even more so now, not having that close contact and your personal bubble, not everyone's going to respect that. And so being able to not freeze up naturally, not that people do it on purpose, right? But there's so many people that have that reaction that when someone grabs them, even if it is in a kind way, if you're surprised and someone's coming up behind you to give you a hug that knows you, loves you, whatever, but there's no warning, a lot of people freeze up or freak out and don't know what to do. And that's something that is invaluable, to be able to retrain your mind in a way to where you can be as comfortable as possible in those situations when hopefully it never happens. But if it does happen, you're ready for it. Right. And so that's definitely a big deal. Now you mentioned something I'm noticing here, kind of a little bit of a trend. Before we got on here, I was asking you about, do you prefer Amy or Amy Joe? And you let me know that, people kind of picked on you as you were younger, for Joe being a boy name. And just kind of walk me back through that now that we're recording. Tell me a little bit more about that story.
Yeah. Just kind of, I was actually, named after one of my parents' really good friends, who, my parents, kind of encompassing everything. I'm one of 6 kids, and my parents have been together for 46 years now, I think.
That's amazing.
They're an amazing couple. My dad was a single income family. My mom raised the kids, and my dad was working hard, and he was always home every night. We grew up really well, like with really hardworking parents. And so, but, when they first, started having kids, were married, they didn't have a lot of money. And so, Joe, was one of my parents' really good friends. And he actually, when I was born, they didn't have enough money. And he really helped my parents out during that time. So I was named after Joe. And then as a kid, naturally, kids are mean. Not all of them, but kids can be mean. And they made fun of me for Joe. And so I just kind of knew early on in my heart, like, okay, well, I need to attack this and own this. So I'm going to be Amy Joe. And so instead of just sticking with Amy, I was like, I'm going to be Amy Joe. And then, being number 5 of 6 kids, you're kind of down on the totem pole. So I have older brothers, older sisters, and we grew up in a house where, if you pick a fight with your sibling and you run to mom or dad, they're not protecting you. Like, if you pick that fight, you better own up to it, So I think it was just a product of my upbringing too. My dad was out there hustling every day, had a good attitude, and was like, life is what you make of it, So I think it was just, I was really lucky to have such a good upbringing like that, where it was a lot of tough love,
Yep. So and you see this again nowadays. There's a lot of kids that are going through this as well. I've had these discussions with my kids as well, just that, they get picked on for certain things that either are out of your control, or in this case, you could have just stuck with Amy, but you're taking the bull by the horns. You're taking your situation and you're controlling what you can, and you're embracing it, and you're embracing that struggle. And so again, like I was saying, you kind of had that theme in your life where you like to take on these challenges and overcome them, which I think is awesome. Especially being younger in the sibling group, I can definitely understand how you could have gone the other way, where you were a little bit more spoiled. Maybe you weren't the tail end, you weren't the caboose of the kids, but usually the younger kids get spoiled a little bit more than the older ones do. So I think it's a very important lesson for children nowadays as well, to understand that you can't always change things. You can choose how you take the situation though, and control what you can. And I think that's really cool that you took that on. And yes, children can be pretty mean especially when the parents aren't around. They can say some things that you're like, where did you hear that from, or what? Yeah, like, where did that come from? But that's cool. Sure. That's an awesome story too, that your neighbor, was able to help out, and this great community, it sounds like. So that's awesome. So you always from Texas?
Yep. I'm a Texas girl.
Yeah. I figured you were Southern. You keep saying, on my heart, and that's totally a Southern thing. I'm from North Carolina. And so I pick up on little things like that. It just, it brings me back to home. But being in Texas, you mentioned you guys have a hobby farm.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through kind of what you guys have planned for your hobby farm, because you used to be beef cattle owners, and that was an awesome story. That that was fun to hear from Tony. But tell me about this the farm. I'm a little interested in that. What's your purpose with it? What are you guys wanting to do with your farm?
Yeah. I'll just say our neighbors get a kick out of us over here because we've just fully jumped in and taught ourselves everything. I grew up in Texas. We had, dogs and cats growing up, a goat, just random stuff, but it was never like on a farm. But we're, health is really important to us, and, being out of the city on land, having grass and pastures and animals is really important to us. We have chickens so we can have fresh eggs. Tony told you how we accidentally got into beef processing, which has actually been like the greatest thing for us, like moving forward for the rest of our lives. We will always have a cow each year that we process for our family and ourselves. Just because we know where that beef came from, the kind of life it lived, and that, ultimately, like, it was our hands that did it. We're not paying a middleman. So that's important to us. We have, we've just set it up to where it's a full lifestyle. We've got an archery range out here. We just set up a sauna. We learned, the benefits of that. So we were like, we got to add that out here. We've got a gym out here. So it really is just set up completely to where, we're as capable on our own as we can be. When COVID hit and we were forced to work from home, nothing really changed for us. We weren't locked out of a gym. We weren't, we had our archery range in the backyard so we could go shoot. We, had our eggs. We had freezers full of meat because of, the cows that we've processed. So that was like a really big thing for us. That was like, okay, we're on the right path here. We don't have to depend on anyone else other than ourselves. And we're able to help out friends and neighbors too, which is important for us as well. So the farm has just become so much more than what we thought it would be. We moved out here 2019, and we fenced most of the place ourselves, and it is very rocky out here. So we had the post drivers, and we were taking turns, and just have completely made it ours. So there's a lot of pride that goes into it, and a lot of purpose and intention. So it's really cool to see how it's all played out for us.
Oh, for sure. That's awesome. I love that idea. And also the fact that you were saying, when COVID hit, everything got locked down, things didn't really change for you guys. That's kind of, I think a lot of people had an awakening to the fact that things can change in the drop of a hat. And it's unfortunate how quick it could change. But again, I think it's I hate and feel for all the people that have suffered through it, obviously, but I also feel like it was a good test for a lot of people to see where you're at. And even so, even being that way, in general, health in general is just the biggest factor. Health and getting outside seem to be the biggest factor with those who, suffered the most from COVID and didn't. Obviously, cutting out any genetic factors or anything like that. But as far as the stuff that, again, going back to what you can control, being healthy and getting outside as much as you possibly can are two big factors that have shown to stave off most diseases, if not just COVID itself. So, you being in Texas, you obviously spent out a lot of time outdoors. I'm surprised you guys have a sauna when you live in Texas, because you just have to walk outside. It's humid enough, I'm sure, and it's definitely hot enough. But growing up in Texas, what are some things that you did growing up that encouraged that kind of the lifestyle you guys have now, the outdoors, fitness, and then we'll get into archery a little bit later as well.
Yeah. So I think it was big with, again, back to my parents. I appreciate them so much, especially as I get older, because I didn't always get along with them. But as I get older, I'm like, oh, shit, I get it. I get why they were the way they were. And they were, for probably until fifth grade, they homeschooled us. And we didn't have cable in the house. We had some movies, but it was like, if you're bored, I'm either going to give you something to do or go outside and play, get out of the house. And, like I said, we had dogs and cats, and I just always loved being outside. We lived on a ranch for a little bit, and so there was horses out there. And then we had a lake house at one point too, so we were always on the boat, or I was, just in the water doing something. So I think it was just kind of a product of my environment. We weren't really allowed to sit and watch TV all day. It was very much like, you've been inside too long, get outside, So that became very rewarding for me. And then it's just kind of always been in my heart after that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love that kind of parenting style of, I try and encourage that with my kids. I'm definitely not the best at, keeping them off the screens. But the screen time has to be earned. And so, it's still a fight whether they like it or not. But it's funny because that little bit of a hurdle, especially, we just got a bunch of snow over the last couple of days. And so the kids were like, I don't feel like doing my chores. I'm going to go out and play. And I was just like, for a second, I'm like, but I need your room clean. But then I was like, no, definitely get out and play. We'll take care of the room later.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll be there for hours.
Yeah. You want to encourage that for sure. And it's a different time too. I mean, we had TVs growing up. We had one computer that the whole family shared, and that was it, so nowadays it's definitely different. And, when we see parents, especially like you that, try to get your kids outside more, we just have so much respect for that. Cause nowadays it's so easy to just give your kid an iPad and then go on with the day. Cause, we don't have kids yet, but I mean, I know it's a lot. But I feel like it's kind of the easy route to just give them a phone or an iPad and then leave them to be babysat. But pushing them to get outside, do outdoor activities together, it's just the best thing for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been interesting to listen to, like Huberman is a guy that I listen to as far as neuroscience is concerned. And he talks about that dopamine. There's also a book I want to read. It's on my list. I think it's called Dopamine Nation or something like that. But basically the discussion of you're getting this, it's even more detrimental for young men. When you get this hit of dopamine without having to do something physical behind it, and your body gets accustomed to doing that. So whether that be video games, whether that be, like my kids, I mean, the most we give them is like Minecraft and Disney Plus, right? But either way, they're getting a hit of dopamine by being on that screen rather than the hit of dopamine for building a fort in the snow, or throwing snowballs and hitting something with it, or shooting a bow. Going out this last weekend and getting to shoot with my sons at the 3D course. And I was actually pretty impressed. My middle son did really well. He was shooting out to 60 yards. And we've never shot that far. We've gone out to 40. And so, I mean, it was a big old moose, but still he was hitting foam, right? And we had a lot of fun. And then my youngest son, who's 8, has his little bow, and he was out there seeing kids his age with the nicer, more, I guess, adjustable compound bows. And I have him, this little toy bow. And he was like, well, mine aren't sticking in the target like theirs. And I said, well, that's an upgraded bow. He was like acting all offended, like, what? When do I get one?
Yeah.
So like, just that it was cool to see that, but that's the dopamine receptors and all the stuff that, neuroscientists talk about. We tap into that by physical work, which is a lot of the stuff that you guys do as well on your farm, seeing the growth, even though it's a delayed gratification. When you see that little green pop up in your garden, in the spring, that's a big deal. When you see, your cow growing the way that it needs to grow so that you can provide for your family. When you're shooting your bow in your backyard, getting to hit that target, all of those things are amazing. They take work, but they're also great activities to get out and do. So I think that's cool that you guys incorporate all of those. Now, as far as physical fitness is concerned, so you were kind of, not forced, but encouraged to be outside most of your childhood. Did you play any sports growing up?
I did. Yeah. I played every sport that I could growing up. I was always
awesome.
I remember I was little. I thought I was so fast, and I used to race all the boys on the playgrounds. Like, I was always just naturally a tomboy, but My parents started that really early. I was in T-ball, little dribblers, and then high school, I went to a private school. So naturally, like if you're athletic, they want you to play every sport. So I played softball, volleyball, basketball, track. And then in college, I ran track for 2 years. And then I would have stuck with that, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in college. And I was just like, 2 more years didn't seem like it was taking me anywhere. I was still figuring out what I wanted to do. So I ultimately dropped out. And then from there, I got into CrossFit. I started competing in CrossFit, and then was interested in bikini competitions. So I did one of those. And then from there, now I'll do a Spartan race each year. I bow hunt, which is so much physical activity and work, which is great. And then jiu-jitsu. So I've kind of just done so much throughout the years.
I'd say so. That's quite a span of activity there. So what did you do in track? What was your event?
I ran the 4x100, the 200 meter, and I high jumped.
Gotcha. So sprinter.
Yeah. I was a sprinter.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Started on the playground.
Really cool. Right?
I was racing the boys,
racing all the boys.
I just made a thing of it. So
that's really cool. And then, so now, you're into CrossFit, jiu-jitsu, and bow hunting. So what is it about CrossFit? And you're still going to CrossFit gym from what I've seen, your posts and things like that. You still train CrossFit style. What is it about CrossFit that I guess attracts you to that style?
I really like the strength aspect of it. When I was training for my bikini competition, for instance, it was very much, pick 4 exercises, do 4 sets, and then move to the next station. I really like high impact, get me going type stuff. Like I was a sprinter, so I like that fast paced, give it all you got. So for CrossFit, I really like that, the style is very much give it all you got and go really heavy. But there's also a lot of technique with it too. So to do, the Olympic style lifts, if you want to go heavy and not break your joints, you have to have really good technique with it too. So I really just like the overall, well-rounded fitness that I get from it. It's not just, I'm building muscle. I'm building strength overall, strength and endurance, which really transfers over to jiu-jitsu and bow hunting. Cause with bow hunting, especially because we go out West, you have to be able to put in the miles. You have to be able to have a heavy pack on your back. You have to be able to hold a bow in your arm all day. And then once you get something down on the ground, then the work really starts. You got to pack it out in and out. And so it kind of all meshes together for me in that aspect.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's, it's definitely competitive when you get into the group environment in there as well with CrossFit. I haven't gone full bore into it, but the times that I've done it, I've enjoyed it. Now, maybe not during it, but afterwards,
yeah,
or all the smack talk, before, but, it's been a little while since I've done a CrossFit workout. And then, during the Hunt Expo, we did one at a local CrossFit gym here, with Elk Shape. We had Black Rifle Coffee bring some people in. And that was a lot of fun. Just all the encouragement, but also like, it was funny because you could see the people that, you knew hadn't been there before and hadn't really worked out before, intensely anyway, but they showed up because Dan Elk Shape was there, or Black Rifle, and it was local. And it was cool to see how the people that were veterans of it, they could come in and notice that and give the encouragement there, but then turn around and smack talk the person next to them that they knew was a veteran of working out. So it was cool to be able to see that. And I do love that community aspect. My biggest holdback for CrossFit is the fact that I don't have an hour to sit and chat afterwards.
There's a lot of, that's what's cool about CrossFit. There's a lot of camaraderie, that's the word, and community involved too. So there's healthy competition. And then there's also, there's, back to that, when someone does decide to show up to the gym for the first time, they're going to recognize that and welcome them in, so there's a lot of really cool things to that. We mostly train at our gym, on our farm. So we get those types of workouts in by ourselves, but at jiu-jitsu is kind of where our community is. And it's very similar there as well. You've got the people that you talk smack to that you're more level with. And then when a newbie comes in, you're like, hey, just stick it out. You're going to be great. And just have that encouragement for them.
Yeah. And then you've been training jiu-jitsu for, was it 4 years?
This will be my 4th year. Yeah. Going into my 4th year.
And you're a blue belt, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So I like to highlight that for people because I know you're consistent with it. I trust what Tony's told me. He said you've been kicking butt. So I need guys to understand that as well, that, you're going to be a white belt for a while. Like, don't go into this thinking it's, some of the other martial arts where you can level up really quick, right? Like, this is something that when you walk in, you see a blue belt, they've been there at least a couple years. And then, you see the brown belts and you're like, wow, that's like almost a decade worth of training right there. And then it just goes up from there. So that's awesome. And congratulations on your blue belt, because that's pretty recent, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just around this time last year that I got my blue belt. Okay. So
that's awesome.
It was cool. When I did start, there was a girl that, she's a brown belt, super athletic. And I was rolling with her and she was like, hey, like, you're going to be good. Just be okay with getting your ass kicked for 6 months and then go from there, and that actually kept me going. Cause there were days where I'm just like, gosh, this person is not as athletic as me and they're killing me. It was so good for the ego because, in sports, I was always able to be like, that's the top person. That's the goal line that I need to beat. If I put X amount more hours of work in than she does, I can beat her, and then I would just kind of hover there. But with jiu-jitsu, it's so different. Like, you can't just put in 8 weeks of really tough work and then you're going to be magically better than anyone else. It does not work that way. It's literally years. And the goal, the goal with that too, me and Tony talk, is like, the goal is just to be able to train forever. As long as we're alive, the goal is to be able to train. So when you put that into perspective, the discomfort that you're going through now and the frustration that you're going through now, is really so small in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a whole different animal. Cause when I first went in, I tried to muscle through. And I was like, this guy is not going to break my guard. Right. And that was like, that was the worst mistake I could have made. But for me, I was like, I'm not going to let him break my guard. And so I'm sitting there and my feet are interlocked and my legs are just on fire holding him. And he could not break my guard, but I couldn't walk the next day because, because my calves had been so strained, holding it in there, and it's a whole different animal because, like you said, you look at these people that are kicking your butt and you're like, man, I could beat them in a race. I could outlift them. I could do this. I could do that. And they're kicking my butt here on the mat. Like, I don't even know what's happening. And I'm in a triangle. Like,
it happened. How did I get here? Yeah. But being able to tap, you're like, it makes you be okay with defeat. Like, okay, I'm going to tap, because I learned a while back that my body stops way before my brain stops. And but with jiu-jitsu, I'm like, okay, health first. That's what they teach us, is health first and then go from there, So being able to tap and say, okay, it's okay, you got me, good game. It just kind of teaches you that humble spirit if you don't have one. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. No, it's definitely a whole different animal. And I highly recommend that people go in and test it out. It's 100%. One of those things that for me, it's almost like I recommend that everyone has at least a little bit of time working in some type of service, whether that be a waiter or, whatever, but something in person, a service job. Because then you learn to appreciate those jobs a heck of a lot more than if you don't. So anyway, definitely, that's definitely a great thing for people to go check out. Now, as far as bow hunting, which again, you like to take on these challenging things, which, I think is awesome. but you're not choosing the easy route. You're not a Netflix connoisseur, right? You really enjoy getting out and doing these challenging things. So bow hunting is definitely not an easy thing to do. Even I know in Texas, you've got the feeders and things like that on some plots of land, and then you have very minimal public land that you can go out and hunt on. So why, I guess, let's start with why bow hunting, and we'll go from there. Why bow hunting for you?
Gosh, there's so many things. Why, and the longer I do it, the more I find more reasons why I plan to continue doing it. But it's, I think there's so many, physical aspects that go into it. You have to be really sharp. You have to practice. Not everybody does, unfortunately, but if you want to be good, you have to practice. You have to stay consistent. You have to know your weapon. You have to know yourself. When you're out there hunting with a bow, it's pretty much as level a playing field as you're going to get between you and the animal. I mean, you are in that animal's element with, a stick and a string, and you have to be really mindful and aware, and you have to keep a good attitude too, because you're probably going to go a lot longer without seeing something than you are going to see something. And so keeping a good attitude, but also, like I said, like the physical aspect of it, you have to be really capable and, literally on the ground level with these animals. So I think there's just so many, like I said, like internal aspects of it where it's good for the soul, honestly, that a lot of people miss out on.
No, I definitely understand that too. It's a whole different ball game. When you want to go out to bow hunt, you're almost, there's a reason why bow hiking is a big joke, because it's true. There is a lot of bow hiking involved where you're not really, there's no animals in sight. You can't find them anywhere. And you're out there just enjoying nature. I love it for generally, now I'm not a whitetail hunter yet, but generally the time of year that you hunt out west with a bow is one of the best times of the year to be out in the mountains. Other than the rut, it's cooling down. Yeah, there's some hot days, but it's cooling down, and the leaves are changing. And it's just a beautiful time of year to be out in the mountains. So you get to go out and recharge. My wife even says, she's like, you come back a different you. Like it's like you have that yearly recharge. She was like, I don't necessarily enjoy you being gone, but you definitely come back a better version of you. And that's something that, she's not lying to me when she says that, because I definitely feel that. Yeah. And so a lot of people say that as well. What is it that you connect most with? And you being in Texas, obviously you're not doing a ton of public land hunting in Texas. Maybe where are some places that you go, and maybe some of your favorite places?
We are full on out west hunters. So like a little bit of my background, my parents, nobody in my family grew up hunting. What I was introduced to as far as hunting goes, I did not like or agree with. So actually for a long time, I was not a supporter of hunting. And then Tony did a little bit of hunting in college. 2019, he got more serious about it, got a bow. And then when he took an interest, I'm very open-minded. So I was like, okay, what's this about? And he kind of told me what his reasons were. And then I was introduced to, like I'm sure many people are, Cameron Haynes and his mindset when it comes to hunting. And that just totally clicked with me. I'm like, wow, there's so many aspects of this that I just shut down for years, but it really is a good thing. So with that, in Texas, there's not a lot of public land. Like you said, I think it's only 3% public land, which is not a lot. There's a lot of people that have leases. And so with that, you have feeders and stands. And I did that once, and I got a whitetail that way. And very grateful to have that opportunity and for that animal. But it wasn't the right fit for me. When we go out west to Colorado, we're we don't have any experience, but what we lack in experience, we make up for in heart because we give it our all. But being out in the woods, tracking and looking for the animal, and, you know, kind of like your wife tells you, you come back a different person. We do too. It's like, even if we don't see anything, it's like a week or 2 week long meditation. Honestly, you're away from people, you're away from, you know, cell service, any kind of electronics. And it's really just you, your thoughts, and God. And it's kind of, it lets you get clear on a lot of things. But yeah, we love to go out to Colorado to hunt. And we're going to look towards going to, you know, Montana and Wyoming and New Mexico in the coming years. But like I said, we're newbies. We're just a few years into this, very self-taught. And, so Colorado has been a good entry for us and we love it. But from there, we plan to keep expanding and growing.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. You know, I would agree on that as well. It's funny that, you know, we kind of started around the same time, just before the pandemic, and as far as bow hunting is concerned, and there's a lot of different ways. And again, there's going to be people that listen to this. There's nothing against, and you've definitely not said this, but I just want to clarify. There's nothing against, you know, sitting over a feeder. We do understand, you know, obviously that there's a time and a place for that. I recommend people go to Texas especially if you know someone or you have some money, that you can go down and get some, you know, what you hear around reps in the red zone, right? Definitely want to be able to understand what your body does during buck fever, things along those lines. Put yourself in those situations where there's animals coming in, but it's not the same experience for me and it sounds like for you and Tony as well, as going out into the mountains, spot and stalk, that kind of hunting. It's totally different. There's a time and a place for both, for sure. If you don't have a ton of time, you know, it can be difficult to go out west and hunt that style. So again, there's so many different variations to it. But I would agree with you that that's also not, I don't get the same enjoyment out of it. I'd almost rather go for a week and not kill something and have that experience, if I had to choose, that one over sitting in front of a feeder and having $3. You know, for me, it's just, that whole experience is completely different. It recharges me in a different way. One's great for filling the freezer and getting reps in the red zone. The other one is just a whole nother, like you said, meditation, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. It's you, God, and nature. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. There's nothing else like it. Again, I'm so glad that we found it. And just, I mean, the community in general has been amazing. You know, we've made friends in the past few years that are, you know, going to be lifelong friends, and that we've gotten closer with than a lot of, you know, other people that we've known for years too, which is, it's just such a cool community. It seems like such a big community, but it's actually really small, and everybody knows each other and is super supportive of each other. And, you know, there is a lot of conservation that's involved in this type of hunting as well, which is huge. And I think everybody in the community knows that and respects that, and knows that, you know, we have to honor that in order to continue to do what we do. So there's just layers. There's so many layers to bow hunting that I love.
That's awesome. No, definitely. And it also goes back to, you know, what you were saying about providing your own meat. That's something that's crucial as well. There's not much better for you than a good elk steak. You know, it's lean, it's red meat, it's got the protein, and it's high in hemoglobin and other things that, you know, that your body needs, that you don't get from store-bought beef. You just don't. And so, but that's awesome. What is maybe one of your, so you said you've been to Colorado, only Colorado up to this point. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we started in 2020. So we did 2020, 21, 22, and then 23 we're going back as well. So this will be our 4th year.
Okay. Awesome. So that's really cool. Do you take your trailer? You mentioned you have an RV.
Yeah,
okay.
We do. We
awesome.
take our trailer, we get a farm sitter, and we just go. It's fun.
A farm sitter. I've never even heard of that before. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like posted the other day. I had to make a whole syllabus of like, here's the chicken's routine, here's the cow's routine, here's the dog's routine. Gates have to stay closed, you know. So there's a whole lot that goes into it.
Wow, that's all right.
Yeah.
Like I've heard, obviously babysitters, but that's cool. A farm sitter.
Yeah.
So what's something that I guess, what's something that we haven't discussed today that's a big part of your life that maybe you want to bring up or share with other people? And if there's not something you want to delve into one of the other topics, that's great too. But is there something that I haven't asked about that you'd like to share about?
Yeah, I kind of have a story of, ultimately why, like health is so important to me, why we have a farm, and, why we got into ultimately bow hunting for, so many reasons, but ultimately it's to fill your freezer with, the best organic meat. I kind of lost my way after college and worked a really stressful job for a few years, was not in a good relationship at the time, and then was just kind of honestly killing myself in the gym. So I was working out not in a positive way and, doing a bikini competition. It was, for vanity reasons over health reasons. And ultimately it was 2016, my health really crashed. My cortisol was actually so high for so long that the doctors thought I had something called Cushing's disease, which is caused by a tumor in your brain. So they did brain scans on me, and, for like 6 months, I went to 6 different doctors. They couldn't figure out what was going on. And they started, they wanted to do some surgeries on me. And I just asked them, I was like, well, do you even know if this is going to work? And they're like, well, not really. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, you want to cut me open and you don't know how this is going to work. I'm going to go figure this out on my own. And so like, that's when I really got into health and nutrition and ultimately like changed my lifestyle. I learned what grounding was, which is, going outside, being in nature, literally touching dirt and grass. I reset my circadian rhythm by getting sunshine first thing in the morning and going to bed at the same time every night. Changed my nutrition. That's why, knowing where my food comes from is so important to me because, nowadays food is just so easily accessible and there's so many preservatives and seed oils and sugar in it that you're really not getting the nutrients that you need. And so really, like taking my health into my own hands changed everything for me. And that's why I really wanted a farm. And, when me and Tony first met, he also wanted that too. And we had really, before we were even together, we had each aligned who we were, what we wanted in life, what our values are. And then when we met each other, it just meshed so perfectly. And now we've got this beautiful life together. So, just kind of like taking my health into my own hands and, going from there led me to, having a farm and chickens and bow hunting my own meat, and everything like that. So that's kind of something I wanted to touch on is just that, like, for anyone listening, like you really have so much control over your life. If you don't think you do, you really do. And health is number one, like if you're not healthy, you really can't experience life the way that it's meant to be experienced and even like show up for your family members too. Like you want to be able to show up healthy for them and pick up where they can't. So that's kind of like my biggest message to people is just like, take care of your health. There's so many diets out there and, quick fixes. It's like, just find what works for you, eat whole foods, meditate, manage your stress, and find things that you enjoy doing. Cause that's life-giving. Life goes by so fast, to spend it doing anything else other than, what truly lights your heart on fire.
Exactly. No, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And it's, I'm just going to touch on that as well, because I'm not the best at routines. That's something that I'm personally working on right now is time blocking. Time blocking for me it's difficult because of children, because there's always going to be something, the random phone call from the school, this, that, or the other. There's always going to be something. but I'm trying to find an approach that I can apply on a consistent basis so I can share that with people, with other parents as well, because you look at that, I want to say it's the 5-Hour Work Week book. I don't know if you've heard of that book. Yeah. So I'm like, great, that seems awesome, but my life can't be structured that easily. Like, if I didn't have kids, 100%. But what I will say is that, you know, using kids as an excuse is not acceptable either. And I feel like a lot of people do use kids as an excuse. So you can control what you can control, right? So bedtime, trying to get them in at the same time every single day, or wake them up every single day at the same time. That's not easy, but it's doable. And it's something that you've mentioned too. Help them form a routine as well. As parents out there, because I know I've got a lot of parents listening, you may hear what Amy Jo's saying and being like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Well, I agree. But what you can do the very similar things. And it's your job, it's your responsibility as a parent to teach your children these habits that Amy Jo's talking about, because you signed up for it. You really did. As a parent, you signed up for these things. And so, and I know one day, if you guys do have children, if that's in the plans, you guys will have had this life built up, these, habits and things that you guys consistently do. And you're just going to mold that right into your children. And so that's just something that I want people to understand. I try and drill that home to people, that kids are not an excuse. It can seem easy to pawn it off on them, but that's not taking ownership, because you are the parent. And I want you to take what Amy Jo has said just now and apply that in whatever way you can, because there are some things that you can control and get under your reins a little bit better, as far as routines are concerned. And I love that you brought that up, because it is super important to get outside, to set those routines, make sure you're going to bed at a similar time every single night. And you've got your training schedule, you've got your work schedule, you've got your family, all the things that you've got going on. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think too, just to kind of give some encouragement, like there's always things changing in life. It's always a moving target, but if you're failing, you at least know you're trying, so, and that's just, it's part of life. So, just start small, control the things that you can control. And if it's too overwhelming, take a step back, like just build those little brick by brick, small things. Like, is it removing, I'm drinking way too much soda during the week. Let's remove a little bit of that, and then, it's like that. I think what goes wrong with people, I was a trainer for 7 years, personal trainer. So I got to see like what works for people, what doesn't work for people. What doesn't work is when people try to change everything at once. It's too overwhelming. You're going to go back to your habits, right? But if you just do one small thing at a time, like what is one thing that you can do this week or this month that will slowly move the needle forward? There's a really good book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. And he talks about like basically your micro choices equal macro effects, so it's like the little things that you can do, and don't beat yourself up also, like you have to have fun with it. So have fun with it and start small. That's all it takes.
Exactly. And it's funny to me that people always want to talk about, oh, well, in your retirement fund or the financial things, saying, hey, if you put a little bit in, how much it changes exponentially in the long run. I'm like, I agree with you. What about your health?
Yeah, for sure.
What about 30 minutes in the gym? You don't have to go for the 2 hours or the 3 training sessions a day that some bodybuilders go through. Like, that's not your job, right? But if you want to be healthier in the long run, you want those dividends, pay out now a little bit of your day. Everyone's got 20 minutes to go move, 45 minutes to go for a walk outside. When that gets easier, add a backpack. Everyone's got some kind of backpack in their house. You have some books or something heavy laying around that you can throw in the backpack when that gets easy. Like, you can just slowly increase. You don't have to go out and do college track like Amy Jo over here and crush jujitsu and CrossFit. You can just go for a walk. Like, just get better at what you're doing right now. Take some time and make yourself better. Move a little bit more. Eat a little bit better today. If you hate vegetables, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. Add some greens, add a little bit of broccoli into your day, then add some snap peas. Find something that you like. My wife, she hates fish, absolutely hates fish. And it's kind of a bummer because my buddy goes to Alaska every year and brings back like 100 pounds of salmon. Right. And so we have salmon out in the freezer, like it just anyway. But she's found that the fish oil that she just found like a combination of this particular fish oil with this Greek yogurt. And she's like, it's the best thing I've had in a while. Got rid of my sweet tooth. But it's taken her probably a year to figure that out, you know? So like it's just little things every single day to better your nutrition, your health, finances, whatever it may be that you're aiming for. Building out the gym that you guys have, having the farm that you guys have. It didn't happen overnight. I imagine it didn't, you know, so
no, it took a lot of years and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So there's a quote that I love. It's like, don't look at someone's front stage success. Look at their backstage story. Cause like what you see on Instagram is like a very small portion of it. You know what I mean? Like there has been so many years, like when I was trying to get my health together, I mean, I cried every day because I'm like, oh my God, like the journey is so far, you know, it's so far. But once like you just put one foot in front of the other, before you know it, you look around and you're like, wow, I've got a pretty cool life now. But it's because you do the hard things every single day and, you know, don't overwhelm yourself. Just start small. And there's not a one size fits all plan. Like everybody's so different. Every body is different. Everybody's interests are different. You know, that's what makes you you. So it's ultimately just slowing down to like, look at what do you want? You know, what makes me feel good? You know, when I eat this, do I feel energized or do I feel sleepy? You know, maybe I shouldn't eat that next time. What could I do next time? You know, it's just kind of like ultimately just focusing more on yourself in a healthy way, you know, and then everything just lines out from there.
Exactly. No, I really appreciate you sharing that. You know, it's been awesome hearing kind of your journey and just, I met you at TAC last year. You and your husband just seemed like a great couple. I love highlighting those couples, just like your parents, freaking 40 something years, man. That is, man, my wife and I went on a date the other night and happened to run into a couple that's been married for, what did they say? It was almost 40 years. And I was just like we're getting ready to hit our 10-year mark next year. And my wife's like, well, after that, statistics say you're stuck with me for the rest of your life. So are you sure you want to go through this next year with me?
Yeah.
But, you know, I really appreciate your time, Amy Jo. I appreciate everything that you've shared today. It's been really insightful. I know people are going to glean some really good things from this. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you about a cattle farm? No, I'm kidding.
Oh man, we can tell you what not to do. Yeah, we can tell you what not to do.
Don't buy the meat steer, right? Or you don't want to buy that one.
For those just catching up, Tony bought a bull off of Craigslist when we moved out to the farm, and he was rogue. He went through fences. He tried to go through us a few times. He went after our neighbor's horses. So we literally had to process him. So that's how we got into beef processing. But it was total accident. People can find me on Instagram. It's at Amy Jo Teague. And then me and Tony actually just started a YouTube channel a few months ago. It's at Texas to Table, Texas TO Table. And that's where you can get more long form versions of what's happening around the farm, because it is a funny farm around here. We're trying to share more of it and what we've learned not to do. So if you're looking for some entertainment, that's where you want to go.
Yeah, for sure. I'll leave the links down below, guys, for you guys to go check it out. But I highly recommend that you guys go check out Amy Jo, their farm, and everything that they've got going on. Get some good informational tidbits there. And again, thanks so much for hopping on, Amy Jo. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you at TAC this year.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on.
All right. And of course, guys, as I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.
That's right.